So I'm going to go over how to make a perfect baked potato without having to use any foil. So not wrapped, but just using some methods, and it comes out perfect pretty much every time. So what you need to do is use a high in starch, low in water type of potato. Typically for baked potatoes, Russet is the first choice, or an Idaho Russet, or even sweet potato is fairly high in starch, low in water. If you don't have either of those, you could get away with maybe Yukon Gold, but generally the all-purpose potatoes or red potatoes or other types don't work well because they're giving more of a mealy consistency as opposed to a nice light flaky interior when they're baked. So first step here is to wash the potatoes. The reason you want to wash them is the skins are fully edible. There's lots of nutrients in the skin. Whether you eat it or not is up to you, but there's phytochemicals and nutrients and vitamins. So, the skin is definitely edible, and actually they say has more nutrients and vitamins than the actual potato contents itself in terms of the flesh. Okay, so I've washed, I'm doing 6 potatoes here, medium-sized russets. Now if you want to use larger ones, you just increase your cooking time by maybe 5 or 10 minutes, but we'll get to that in a minute. The important part here is to make sure they're completely washed and dried. So just take a tea towel or a paper towel and make sure they're nice and dry. They don't have to be completely bone dry, but get any extra moisture off the skins. And you can let them sit for a while, but you don't need to. I just continued on after doing this, so I just dried them and put them in a dish rack and then followed on to the next step. So this is important. You want to make sure that you poke holes medium depth with a fork or something else to poke them, but just give them about about 6 pokes or 9 pokes with a fork. Just rotate it. The reason you're doing this obviously is to let some steam escape. The last thing you want is a potato exploding in your oven or in your toaster oven or in your roaster. So it is important to give them a good poke on all sides of the potato. Now some people will just make a small slice on either end, and that whatever method you use, you got to make sure that there's a way for that steam to escape the skin of the potato, because russets have a fairly thick skin and they'll hold all that steam in and it will build up pressure. So it could happen that you have part of the potato exploding on you. So definitely take the step to punch those holes in the side. Okay. So what I've done here, about a half tablespoon of whatever oil of your choice. This is sunflower oil. It's a nice light oil with very little flavor. So you want to coat all sides of your potato in a light coating of oil. The reason you're doing that is to make your skin a little bit crispy and to stop it from wrinkling up quite a lot. So it won't shrink as much. You'll have a nice crispy skin. So again, just a nice light coating. You don't have to overdo it, but try to cover every part of the potato. Just rotate with your hands. And again, I'm using sunflower oil. You could use olive oil. Try to avoid an oil with a lot of flavor. And as you can see, I'm using a cooling rack on top of a baking sheet. So if you don't have access to a cooling rack or something to suspend these potatoes up above whatever you're cooking them on, you're going to have to kind of halfway through the cooking rotate the potato so it doesn't burn and that it gets evenly cooked. But it's best to have them kind of have full airflow on all sides, and the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to have it up on a rack or a cooling rack like this. Now this next step is optional. This is pink Himalayan sea salt, just fairly fine. You could use a coarse sea salt as well, or coarse salt or kosher salt. But yeah, you could roll it in a bit of salt. It kind of is because you have the oil on the skin, it makes it easy for the salt to stick. I only did it for one potato just for an example. I don't always do that, but it's nice to have a little bit of salt on the outside if you want. So this is the important part. Bake on the middle rack at 400 degrees for 50 to 60 minutes. So these are medium potatoes, and after 50 minutes they were done. If you have larger size, then I would go 60 or at least 55. So if you have smaller potatoes, you could go less, but generally around the 50-minute mark. You'll see. Now it's really up to you to check the interior and poke it and make sure it's done as well. So, but 50 to 60 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm just going to go through some of the typical toppings for baked potatoes. Typical toppings include chives and sour cream and butter and bacon bits as well, but I didn't have any chives in house, and I just ran out of my dried chives, so I used a green onion and I cut the into fine rings, and I had a bit of bacon bits, and we always use a bit of sour cream. But yeah, the toppings are your choice. Some people use shredded cheese as well, so I'm just making some pats of butter. But you don't have to do this. You could just use regular, you just cut a little piece off of some butter onto your potato, but it's more convenient sometimes to cut them in slices like that, just so they're ready for people to take. Okay, so there's our toppings. Again, you could use cheese or whatever else. A lot of people have other options, but here's the results after 50 minutes at 400. So the skin is nice and crispy. I'm going to cut through and just double check that everything is nice and cooked. You can see the steam escaping. And I'm just double checking that everything is fully cooked, and it is. It's nice and flaky and soft. And this is why a russet is a really good choice, because regular cooking potatoes are all-purpose potatoes. They're good for soups and other things, but they're kind of waxy and mealy, so they're not as nice and fluffy as these are. So there you can see, it comes off really nice. The skin is nice and thick and crispy and has quite a bit of flavor. Okay, so the toppings are really your choice, but I just wanted to go over the cooking method. So you don't need aluminum foil. I would say the one exception for foil is if you're doing a barbecue baked potato and you're cooking other meats and you have a lot of smoke and other flavors going on inside your barbecue, then yeah, foil would probably protect the skins from acquiring all those other flavors and the smoky flavors. So I hope you give this method a try. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. Please subscribe, and bye for now.